Hey all, welcome to my channel Talebearing time. Today in this video, I want to simply tell the tale of William Shakespeare's As You Like It. Let's get into the story. As You Like It. Many years ago, France was not one country as it is now. It had many rulers called dukes. Each of these dukes was the ruler of an area called a dukedom. Now, there was one duke who was a very good and noble man. He was loved by all his followers and friends. Unfortunately, this duke had an evil brother. This brother wanted to become the duke. He planned with some of the duke's enemies and with their help became the duke. His name was Frederick, and he made people call him Duke Frederick. His elder brother, the actual duke, was forced to leave the palace and go away to the forest. In the forest, there was no palace and no servant either. But the old duke never complained. He had his close friends living with him, and they all lived happily together. Many young men from the court of Duke Frederick used to come to the forest to meet and take advice from that senior duke. Duke Frederick had a daughter called Celia. His elder brother too had a daughter, and her name was Rosalind. The two girls were of the same age when Frederick became the duke and sent his brother to take his daughter along with him. Rosalind was forced to stay back at the palace and keep company to Celia. As the two girls grew up together, they became very good friends. Celia was not like her father, the cruel duke. She was a very kind girl. Rosalind often used to become unhappy when she thought of her father who was living in the forest. Celia always used to try to make her cousin Rosalind happy. One day, the two girls were sitting and talking when a messenger came from the duke. He told them that a wrestling match was going to start, and the duke had asked both of them to come and watch it. Celia, hoping that it would make Rosalind happy to watch the match, got up and started asking her cousin to come along. Rosalind agreed finally, and they both went to the match. When the two cousins reached the stadium, they were very surprised by what they saw. One of the wrestlers was a huge man and a great champion who had even killed people he wrestled with. But his opponent was a young and handsome man who did not look like a wrestler at all. Duke Frederick called the girls and said to them, "See these two men? There is so much difference between them. I pity the young man. He will be killed very soon. Why don't you talk to him and try to stop him from fighting?" Celia and Rosalind were happy to do this. Celia first spoke to the young man and he refused to stop fighting. Then Rosalind went to the young man and spoke to him very sweetly. "I wish you would not fight. You are so young and handsome. Please do not waste your life," she pleaded. Instead of listening to the lovely lady's request, the young man decided to impress her by fighting. He very gracefully refused to give up the wrestling match. He said, "I am honored that such lovely ladies should come and ask me not to fight. But I wish you would be able to support me in this fight. I have anyway got no friends or relatives who would cry even if I die. At least you will feel bad if I lose and die. And if I win, it will be with your support." Saying this, the young man went off to start the fight. Celia was afraid that he might get hurt and was hoping the best for the young man. But it was Rosalind who was really scared. She had almost fallen in love with this young man and did not want to see anything bad happen to him. She felt that they had a lot in common, since she too had no friends or relatives to cry for her. She was praying and hoping that the young handsome man would win the match. The young man too had been so touched by the concern shown by the young ladies that he decided to his best for them. This gave him a lot of courage and he fought very bravely and won the match. His opponent was beaten badly and could not even get up from the ground. Duke Frederick was also pleased with the young man's bravery and decided to reward him. "Who are you, young man? And what is your name?" he asked. "My name is Orlando, and I am the youngest son of Sir Roland Boyce," he replied. Duke Frederick became very angry when he heard this. This was because Orlando's father, Sir Roland Boyce, had been a very loyal subject and dear friend of the banished Duke. Duke Frederick did not want to award him his enemy's son. "Get out of here, young man. You are brave, but I wish you had been somebody else's son," he shouted and left the place. Rosalind was very pleased to hear that Orlando's father and her father had been very good friends. "I wish I had known this earlier. I would not have let him fight them," she said to Celia. The two cousins then went to Orlando and spoke kindly to him. When they were leaving, Rosalind took a chain from her neck and gave it to Orlando. "I do not have anything else to give you now, since I am not a rich lady," she said and left. Even later, Rosalind continued talking to Celia of Orlando. Celia then knew that her dear cousin had fallen in love. Duke Frederick, in the meantime, had become even more furious. He had suddenly remembered how many friends his brother had and how the people too loved him very much. He also knew that the people prized Rosalind for her looks and good qualities. All this made him turn his anger towards his niece. He went quickly to the room where the young lady sat. And as he entered, he heard Rosalind speak of Orlando. "His father loved my father, and now I think I love Orlando," she was saying to Celia. This only increased Frederick's anger with his niece. "Get out of my palace," he roared. "Go and live with your father in the forest. There is no place for you here," he said. Rosalind was very sad but did not speak. "She will not go further," said Celia. "We have grown up together, eaten together, and learned together. I cannot live without her." "You are a fool, Celia," replied her father. "The people are praised her and pity her, and so when she is gone, they will all praise you instead. She must go. She can't live here for sure," he said and left the room. Celia realized that she could not change her father's decision. She then decided to go away with Rosalind to the forest where they could live with the banished Duke. Thus, the two young ladies decided to leave the night and run away to the forest. They decided to change their dresses to look more simple. They also decided that one of them should dress up as a man, since they would be safer that way. Rosalind, being the taller of the two, dressed up as a countryman, and Celia as a country girl. They changed their names and decided to travel as brother and sister. Rosalind's name was changed to Ganymede, and Celia became Aliena. In this disguise, the young ladies took all their jewels and money and left that night. They had a long way to travel since the banished duke lived far away outside the kingdom in a forest called Arden. After a long and tiring journey, Ganymede and Aliena reached the forest of Arden. They were both so tired that Rosalind, who was supposed to be a man, could not find the strength to travel anymore. But since she was supposed to be Aliena's brother, she had to encourage Aliena to complete the journey. Come on, Aliena, be brave. We have only a short distance to go, she said. Aliena too was very tired and she decided to rest for a while before traveling further. Unfortunately, the two young ladies had finished all their food and water and were now feeling very hungry and weak. Just then, a man with a few sheep was passing by. Ganymede boldly went up to him. Shepherd, please tell me where I can get some food and rest. My sister is very weak and will faint soon. I will give you gold if you can give me food, he said. The shepherd replied that he was only a servant who was going to meet his master and that even the house they were living in was going to be sold. Still, you are welcome to come with me and share whatever little we have, he offered. Ganymede and Aliena agreed and said that they would even buy the shepherd's house and his sheep from him if they could only get a little food. Since the shepherd's house was close by, they soon arrived there and having brought the house, decided to live there for a few days till they knew where the old duke was. So, Ganymede and Aliena really began to live like the shepherds they had pretended to be. Ganymede was still in love with Orlando and she continued thinking of him very often. Orlando, meanwhile, was also in the forest of Arden. How this happened is a very sad story. Orlando was the youngest son of Sir Roland's boys. His father had died some years ago and had left him with his elder brother Oliver. Oliver was very jealous of Orlando. He never sent Orlando to school but made him do all the work at home. But Orlando was very much like his father. He was a very noble and good-hearted person. All the people too liked him very much, and this made Oliver even more jealous. He had heard of a famous wrestler who had killed many of his opponents. With some help from his other evil friends, he had succeeded in sending Orlando to fight with the wrestler. This, as you all know, was where Orlando met Rosalind and also defeated the wrestler. When Orlando came back after winning the fight, Oliver decided to kill him. He planned to burn the room in which Orlando slept at night. Fortunately, this plan was overheard by an old servant. This man's name was Adam, and he had been a loyal and faithful servant of Orlando's father. He decided to save Orlando's life and take him out of Oliver's plan. Your brother is planning to kill you, young master, he warned. He is jealous of you and hates you because all the people love and respect you. Let us go away from here. I have 500 crowns, the money in those days, with me, and I will serve you till I die. Orlando was glad that his life was being saved. Come, Adam, we will go together, and soon I will find a job and we shall live comfortably, he promised. So, together, Orlando and Adam left Oliver's house and traveled till they one day came to the forest of Arden. They two were very tired and hungry. Adam, being an old man, had become very weak and could not travel any further. Rest here, dear Adam. I will find food and bring it here, said Orlando, and set out in search of food. He soon came to the place where the old banished Duke was living. The Duke and his friends were just getting ready to have their dinner and were all sitting on the grass in front of their foods. Orlando was so hungry that he went wild when he saw the food. He drew his sword and ran to them. Stop, he shouted. I must have some food, or I will kill all of you. Are you so hungry, young man? Or do you not have any manners? Asked the old Duke. Come, sit down and eat with us, he told Orlando gently. Orlando was ashamed of his behavior. Pardon me, sir, he said. I thought that everything in this forest was bad and wild, and that I had to fight for food. Please take pity on me, because I am very tired and very hungry. You are welcome to eat with us, young man, said the old Duke. Sit down and eat as much as you want. No, sir. Before I eat, I have to feed an old man. He has served me faithfully and has come a long way with me. I will not eat even a piece before I feed him, explained Orlando. Go then and bring your friend. He is also welcome to eat with us, said the Duke kindly. Orlando left immediately and in a short while returned with Adam in his home. The old man had become so weak that he could not even walk. Later that night, after Orlando had dinner and a good rest, the old Duke asked him who he was. When he heard that Orlando was the son of his old friend Rolandi Boyce, he was overjoyed. He asked Orlando to continue living with him. Orlando, seeing that the old Duke had been a dear friend of his father, agreed. Ganymede and Aliena, meanwhile, had become very familiar with the forest. But they had found something very surprising there. Many of the trees had Rosalind's name carved on them. They were very curious to know who was returning this. But they did not have to wait very longer. They soon met Orlando in the forest. Rosalind was very happy to see that he was still wearing the chain which she had given him. Orlando, of course, had no idea that this shepherd was Rosalind. Thus, the two soon became friends. Orlando liked his shepherd friend a lot, since he thought that he had a resemblance of his lover Rosalind. I wonder who writes this name Rosalind on all the trees in the forest. He spoiled all the trees. I wish I could meet him. I would give him good advice and cure him of this love, said Ganymede. Orlando then told his friend that he was the one who had written the name on all the trees in the forest. Tell me what advice you have for me and how you will cure me of my problem, he asked Ganymede. Come to my cottage every day. Imagine that I am Rosalind and talk to me as you would talk to her, offered Ganymede. I will then behave like a stubborn rich lady and will refuse your love. This method will soon cure you of your love for Rosalind. Orlando did not believe what Ganymede told him, but decided to try out the idea. So, from the next day, he regularly went to the cottage where Ganymede and Aliena lived and spent a lot of time talking to Ganymede. I love you, Rosalind, he said very often to Ganymede, who would then turn away. This went on for many days, but Orlando was still not cured of his love for Rosalind. He was happy talking to Ganymede and never guessed that he was actually talking to Rosalind. Rosalind too liked the way Orlando spoke to her and did not object to his attention. While this was going on, one day, Ganymede met the old duke in the forest. "Where do you come from, shepherd boy?" asked the duke. "I am from a duke's family," replied Ganymede to her father. The duke smiled when he heard this. He did not believe the shepherd boy. One day, as usual, Orlando was going to Ganymede's cottage. On the way, he saw a strange and fearful sight. A man was lying asleep under a tree, and a snake had coiled itself around the man's neck and was ready to bite him. When it saw Orlando, it quickly got away into the bushes. When Orlando came closer, he saw something even more scary. A lion was lying close to the man. It was ready to kill him as soon as he woke up. By then, Orlando had come close enough to see the man's face. It was none other than his evil brother Oliver, who had tried to kill him earlier. Orlando thought that he should leave his brother to the lion and go away. But he was a noble man and decided not to do that. He drew out his sword and started fighting with the lion. The lion tore out one of the Orlando's arms, but he still fought very bravely and managed to kill it in the end. Oliver woke up just then and saw that his brother Orlando had saved his life. He felt very ashamed of himself and went down on his knees and begged Orlando's forgiveness. Orlando was a very kind person. He immediately forgot the past and forgave his brother for all that had happened. They embraced one another, and from the onwards, Oliver loved Orlando with real brotherly love. Orlando's arms were bleeding very much. He was feeling too weak to go and visit Ganymede. So he asked Oliver to go and tell Ganymede about the accident. Oliver went to Ganymede and Aliena and told them how Orlando had saved his life. When he finished the story, he admitted to them that he was Orlando's brother and that he was feeling very sad because he had treated Orlando so cruelly. Yet, Orlando had forgiven him for everything. Oliver's true feelings of shame and regret for his bad behavior impressed Aliena so much that she at once fell in love with him. When Oliver saw how deeply Aliena was moved by hearing about his sorrow, he too suddenly fell in love with her. But just then, Ganymede, upon hearing what had happened to Orlando, fainted. When he recovered, he did not want Oliver to know that he had really fainted. So he pretended that his fainting was just an act of the imaginary Rosalind. He said to Oliver, "Tell your brother how well I pretended to faint." But Oliver could see that Ganymede had really fainted, was very surprised. He said to Ganymede, "Well, if you were really acting, then be brave and try to act like a man." Ganymede replied, "Yes, I do try, but actually, I should have been a woman." Oliver then sat talking with Ganymede and Aliena, and this visit became a long one. At last, he returned to his poor, wounded brother and gave him all the news. He told him how Ganymede had fainted on hearing about Orlando's condition. He also told him that he had fallen in love with the beautiful shepherdess Aliena and that she too seems to like him. As he was saying all this, Oliver decided that he would marry Aliena, whom he loved so much, and would live here as a shepherd, and gave up his estate and house to Orlando. He told Orlando of his plan and asked him for his opinion. Orlando agreed to the plan of his brother's marriage and said, "Let your wedding be tomorrow." I will invite the Duke and his friends. Now, you go and convince your shepherdess to agree to this. She must be alone now, since her brother has come here. Ganymede had come to see Orlando and to ask about his health. Oliver left immediately to meet Aliana and to tell her of his plan and asking her for marriage. Orlando told Ganymede that Oliver and Aliana had quite suddenly fallen in love, and that he had thus advised his brother to marry the shepherdess the next day. He added that he too wished to marry to Rosalie at the same time. But unfortunately, it would not be possible. Ganymede thought that this was a good idea. He told Orlando that if he really loved Rosalind as much as he claimed to, then he would be able to marry her the next day. He promised that he would arrange to make Rosalind appear there the next day. And then she too would be willing to marry Orlando. Orlando did not believe Ganymede and the promise seemed impossible to him. But Ganymede assured him that he would do it. I will perform a magic trick and bring Rosalind to you. My uncle, a great magician, taught me to do this, he explained. Orlando was so excited that he could not believe the Ganymedes meant what he said. Seriously. I promise I do, answered Ganymede. So, put on your blessed clothes and request the Duke and your friends to come to your wedding. If you wish to marry Rosalind tomorrow, she shall be there. Meanwhile, Aliana had agreed to marry Oliver, so the next day they both went along with Orlando to see the Duke. All were assembled to celebrate the marriage of the two brothers, yet only one bride appeared, and everyone was puzzled. They all thought that Ganymede had been making fun of Orlando. Orlando too was very sad that Ganymede had only made fun of him. When the Duke heard that his own daughter was to be married, he was very surprised. Do you really believe the shepherd boy? He asked Orlando. I do not know, my lord. He seems to be telling the truth to me, replied poor Orlando. Just then Ganymede entered and asked the Duke, would you allow your daughter to marry this young Orlando? If she were brought here now, sir? Yes, I would, replied the Duke. I only wish that I had many kingdoms to give her. Ganymede then said to Orlando, and you say you will marry her if I bring her here? Yes, I would, said Orlando. I only wish that I were the king of many kingdoms. Ganymede and Aliana went out together. Ganymede quickly changed into woman's clothes and became Rosalind again. Aliana too threw off her country clothes, wore her own rich clothes, and once again became Lady Sylvia. While they were away, the Duke said to Orlando that Ganymede looked very much like his daughter Rosalind. Orlando too agreed that they were alike in many ways. I wonder how there is so much similarity between them, said the Duke. They had no more time to wonder how all this would end. Just then, Rosalind and Celia entered in their own clothes. Rosalind went to her father and going down on her knees before him, begging for his blessings. All this really seems like magic to everyone present, and all were amazed. Rosalind did not want to joke anymore and decided to reveal the true story. She told her father how they had run away from the palace and come to the forest. The Duke happily agreed to the marriage, and the Orlando and Rosalind, Oliver and Celia were married at the same time. Though their wedding could not be celebrated grandly in the wild forest. It was a very happy wedding. While they were all eating under the tree, a messenger suddenly arrived there. He had been sent by Duke Frederick. He had come to inform the old duke that the dukedom had been given back to him. He also told the old duke what had actually happened. The duke's evil brother had become very angry and his daughter Celia ran away from him. Also, he saw that every day many of the duke's followers were going away to the forest of Arden to serve the old duke there. He had become furious and jealous of his brother. Deciding to catch and imprison his elder brother, he marched into the forest with many of his men. But a very strange thing happened as he entered the forest. He met an old hermit there who spoke to him for a very long time. This hermit preached to him and magically changed him from an evil person into a good man. From then on, this evil man changed completely and started to repent for all his harmful deeds. He decided to give up the kingdom and all his riches and to stay in the religious house forever. So, he at once sent a messenger to his brother, the duke, and returned his dukedom to him. He also promised to return all the lands belonging to the old duke's friends. This good news was surely unexpected, but it came at just the right time to make the occasions an even happier one. Celia was very happy for her cousin and her uncle. Rosalind was now the heir to the dukedom. And Celia was very glad that now everything belongs to the rightful persons. The two cousins loved one another so dearly and sincerely that Celia was not all jealous of her cousin. Instead, she wished Rosalind joy very sincerely. The Duke now had a chance to reward all his true and loyal friends who had stayed with him in the forest for so long. All these followers were also very glad to return to the peace and prosperity they deserved. Thus, in the end, all were happily reunited and they all lived happily in the beautiful palace of the old Duke. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Thank you all.